My friends, one of the greatest tragedies of the human heart is complacency, that quiet voice that whispers, "You've done enough, you've gone far enough, just stop here." But the truth is this: as long as we draw breath, we are called to growth. We are called to become more alive, more wise, more loving, more like the ideal version of ourselves that our Creator intended from the beginning. To improve yourself is not merely a project of personal ambition. It is a sacred duty. It is to cooperate with the divine spark placed within you. Every day, every challenge, every failure, and every success is a summons to ascend one step higher. Too often, we settle for comfort when we are made for greatness. We numb ourselves with distractions, routine, or fear, forgetting that the human soul is designed for expansion. The heart grows restless when it is not striving toward truth, beauty, and goodness, and that restlessness is not a curse, it is a gift. It is the whisper that says, "There is more, keep going." Improvement is not about perfectionism or pride. It is about humility, the honest recognition that we are not yet who we could be. It is about discipline born of love, love for the people we serve, love for the gifts we've been given, love for the one who gave them. So do not stop. When you fall, rise again. When the road seems endless, remember that every step forward, however small, transforms you. And one day, when you look back, you will see that every struggle was a chisel shaping the masterpiece that is your soul. Never stop improving yourself, because every act of growth is an act of gratitude for the life you've been given. Complacency is the enemy of the soul. We are called to continual growth and renewal. There is a quiet danger that creeps into our lives when we begin to think that we have arrived. It is that subtle voice that says, "You've done enough, you've learned enough, you've grown enough." That whisper is not harmless. It is the beginning of spiritual decay, the moment when passion begins to cool and the flame of purpose starts to flicker. Human beings were not made for stagnation. We were made to move, to climb, to seek, to discover. Within each of us burns a restlessness, a longing for something more, something higher, something deeper. That longing is not an accident. It is the echo of the divine call that urges us forward, reminding us that we are not yet who we were created to be. The soul is like a river. When it flows, it is alive, vibrant, and life-giving. But when it stops moving, when it becomes still and stagnant, it begins to rot. Complacency does exactly that to the spirit. It dulls our senses, weakens our will, and convinces us that mediocrity is enough. The moment we stop striving to grow, we begin to shrink. The moment we stop learning, we begin to forget. The moment we stop seeking the good, the true, and the beautiful, our hearts begin to harden. To live is to change. To grow is to respond to the constant invitation of life, the invitation to become more than we were yesterday. Every experience, every challenge, every failure, and every success is a lesson meant to shape us, refine us, and call us to something greater. Growth is not always glamorous. It often requires humility, the willingness to admit that we do not know everything, that we have much to learn, that there are still shadows within us that need light. It requires courage, the strength to face discomfort, to let go of what is easy, and to embrace what is difficult. And it requires patience, the trust that transformation takes time, and that renewal often begins in quiet, hidden places. The danger of complacency is that it tells us to stay comfortable. It persuades us that safety is better than progress, that the familiar is better than the unknown. But comfort, though pleasant, is often the greatest barrier to greatness. It is easy to settle for a predictable life, to do what we have always done, to believe what we have always believed. But deep within, something in us rebels against that. Something whispers, "You were made for more." That whisper is the call of the soul, urging us to rise, to renew ourselves, to step beyond the limits we have accepted. Renewal is not a one-time event. It is a rhythm, a way of life. Every day offers a chance to begin again, to think more clearly, to act more kindly, to live more fully. Even the smallest act of self-improvement, when done with intention, brings us closer to who we are meant to be. We grow when we choose to forgive instead of resent. We grow when we choose to learn instead of dismiss. We grow when we face our fears instead of fleeing from them. This growth does not come from the outside. It begins within, in the quiet decision to keep moving forward even when no one is watching. Complacency may promise comfort, but it leads only to emptiness. Growth may demand effort, but it leads to life. To grow is to honor the gift of existence. To renew oneself is to say yes to the call of the Spirit, and that call never stops. As long as there is breath in us, we are invited to rise, to become, to renew again and again. Self-improvement is a sacred duty, not merely a personal pursuit. It is not a hobby for the ambitious or a pastime for the restless. It is a calling written into the very structure of the human soul. We are not accidents of existence, wandering without purpose. We are beings entrusted with gifts, intellect, will, creativity, and conscience, and these gifts come with responsibility. To improve ourselves is to honor those gifts. It is to acknowledge that what we have been given is not meant to remain unused or undeveloped. Every talent, every capacity, every spark of potential within us is meant to grow, to serve, and to give glory through excellence. When we strive to become better, we do not do it for vanity or pride. We do it because growth is a way of gratitude. It is our response to the one who breathed life into us and said, "Go forth and flourish." Self-improvement is sacred because it touches something eternal. It is not only about building skills or achieving success. It is about shaping the soul, refining the heart, and aligning the will with truth and goodness. Each time we learn something new, overcome a weakness, or act with greater kindness, we participate in the great work of creation itself. We add light to the world. Too often we think of self-improvement as a self-centered endeavor, a personal race toward perfection or recognition, but that is a shallow vision. True growth always moves outward. When we improve ourselves, we are better able to serve others. When we develop wisdom, others benefit from our counsel. When we grow in patience, others find peace in our presence. When we strengthen our character, others gain trust and inspiration. In this way, personal transformation becomes an act of service. It becomes a form of love. To become the best version of yourself is not selfish. It is generous. It means offering the world something more whole, more grounded, and more alive. Every person you meet is touched by the quality of your inner life. If you cultivate discipline, your actions carry weight. If you cultivate compassion, your words heal. If you cultivate integrity, your example uplifts. Therefore, working on yourself is not optional. It is a moral responsibility. The world needs people who are growing, learning, and maturing. It needs people who are willing to rise above mediocrity and bring excellence into whatever they do. The teacher who refines her skills helps shape young minds. The craftsman who perfects his art preserves beauty. The parent who grows in patience creates peace in the home. Each act of self-betterment ripples outward, touching lives we may never see. This is why self-improvement is sacred, because it connects the personal with the universal, the inner with the outer, the temporal with the eternal. It is the ongoing process of turning potential into purpose. It demands humility, because to improve means to admit we are not yet who we should be. It demands perseverance, because the path of growth is often steep and slow. And it demands faith, because we must believe that the effort matters, that every act of discipline, every moment of learning, every quiet victory contributes to something far greater than ourselves. To neglect this duty is to waste the treasure we have been given. To embrace it is to live in alignment with the deepest truth of our being. Self-improvement, when done with love and sincerity, becomes an offering, a way of saying, I will not let this life go to waste. It becomes prayer in motion. It becomes gratitude turned into action. It becomes the sacred rhythm of becoming more fully human, more deeply alive, and more attuned to the divine pulse that beats within us all. Each person carries a divine spark, a call to become the fullest version of oneself. From the moment of our creation, something eternal was breathed into us, a light that no darkness can entirely extinguish. This light is the mark of the divine within the human heart, a quiet but powerful reminder that we are more than flesh and bone. We are bearers of something sacred, something infinite. It is this spark that drives our longing for meaning, our hunger for truth, our desire to create, to love, to transcend. It is the whisper that tells us, even in our lowest moments, that we were made for more. Each person, regardless of circumstance, carries this inner flame. It does not depend on success, status, or skill. It is not something earned, it is something given. And though life may cover it with fear, pain, or failure, the spark never goes out. It waits patiently for the moment when we choose to fan it back into flame. To recognize this divine spark within ourselves is to awaken to our true identity. We are not random accidents drifting through time. We are beings with purpose, invited into the great work of becoming. To become the fullest version of oneself is not about pride or self-importance. It is about responding to the sacred call that echoes in every human soul, the call to grow, to give, and to become a reflection of the goodness that first created us. Every person is like a seed, containing within them the potential for immense beauty and strength. But the seed must break open before it can grow. So too must we face challenge, discomfort, and transformation before our true selves can emerge. The divine spark within us is not passive. It urges us forward, urging us to act, to choose, to rise. It is what pulls us toward compassion when the world tempts us to grow cold. It is what drives us toward justice when silence would be easier. It is what moves us to create, to teach, to heal, to build, to forgive. Every act of love, every moment of courage, every instance of truth, telling all of it comes from the same sacred fire within. When we ignore this spark, we begin to lose our sense of direction. We drift into confusion, into noise, into the dull ache of living without purpose. But when we honor it, when we nurture it, life begins to take on clarity and depth. We begin to see that the world itself is a canvas, and our lives are the brushstrokes of something greater than we can comprehend. To become the fullest version of oneself is not a selfish ambition. It is a spiritual journey. It is the process of aligning our actions with our essence, of allowing the light within to guide us outward. It is about shedding the false layers, fear, pride, comparison, until what remains is authentic, radiant, and free. Every time we act in love instead of hate, the spark grows brighter. Every time we choose truth over comfort, it burns stronger. Every time we lift another person, it spreads beyond us, lighting the path for others. That is the mystery of the divine spark. It multiplies when shared. The more we live from it, the more we awaken it in those around us. And in this way, the world itself becomes brighter, one life at a time. We are not meant to live half awake, dimmed by doubt or routine. We are meant to blaze, to bring the unique radiance of our being into the world. That is the sacred call within every heart, to become not someone else, but the truest, fullest expression of who we already are. The divine spark within us is both gift and invitation, a gift that affirms our worth, and an invitation to rise into the fullness of our being. Comfort can be dangerous, lulling us into spiritual and moral stagnation. It arrives quietly, like a warm blanket on a cold night, whispering that we have done enough, that we can now rest indefinitely. At first, it feels safe, soothing, even deserved. But over time, comfort becomes a cage soft on the inside, yet strong enough to keep us from growing. We were not made to live in perpetual ease. We were made to strive, to struggle, to reach for something higher than ourselves. The human soul was designed for movement, for challenge, for transformation. When comfort takes hold too deeply, that movement stops. The spirit becomes dull, the will grows weak, and the fire of purpose begins to fade. Comfort whispers lies that sound gentle and reasonable. It tells us that risk is foolish, that effort is unnecessary, that growth can wait for another day. It tells us that mediocrity is enough, that peace is found in avoidance, that security is better than greatness. And so, without even realizing it, we settle. We trade the vitality of the soul for the ease of the familiar. We begin to live small lives, repeating the same habits, thinking the same thoughts, avoiding the hard questions that lead to truth. Comfort becomes our silent master. It tells us to stay where we are because change feels uncomfortable. It convinces us that comfort equals happiness, even though deep within, we feel a quiet restlessness. That restlessness is the voice of the soul protesting against stagnation. It is the reminder that we are not meant to stop moving forward. The great danger of comfort is that it numbs us to the urgency of growth. When everything feels pleasant, we stop paying attention to what truly matters. We forget to examine our hearts, to question our motives, to renew our purpose. We may appear peaceful on the surface, but beneath that calm, we are drifting slowly, quietly away from meaning. The path of comfort often leads to emptiness because it lacks struggle, and without struggle, there is no strength. Without tension, there is no growth. Without challenge, there is no depth. The moral and spiritual life demands wakefulness. It demands that we remain alert to the dangers of complacency, alert to the subtle ways comfort steals our courage. We are meant to be stretched, tested, refined. It is in the moments of discomfort when we are challenged to forgive, to persevere, to sacrifice that the soul becomes strong. Discomfort purifies our motives. It teaches us humility. It shows us what we truly value and where our faith really lies. Comfort, on the other hand, seduces us into believing that we can have peace without purpose, joy without discipline, and fulfillment without growth. But the heart knows better. Somewhere inside, we sense that true peace does not come from avoiding struggle, but from facing it with courage. Every great life is marked by moments of discomfort, by the willingness to step beyond the known and the safe. Growth always begins at the edge of comfort. It begins when we say yes to the unknown, when we confront the parts of ourselves that resist change. To live fully is to accept that discomfort is not the enemy. It is the companion of every soul that seeks truth, virtue, and greatness. Comfort may promise happiness, but it delivers stagnation. Discomfort may bring pain, but it leads to awakening. The danger is not in resting for a while, but in choosing to stay asleep. The call of the human spirit is to rise, to stretch beyond the soft walls of ease and move toward the light of purpose once again. Restlessness is a gift, a sign that the soul desires more meaning and depth. At first, it may not feel like a gift at all. It often comes as an ache, a quiet unease, a stirring within that will not let us settle. It can make us uncomfortable, dissatisfied, even lost. But beneath that discomfort lies a sacred invitation. Restlessness is the soul's way of saying, "There is more for you than this." It is the whisper that calls us beyond what is familiar, beyond what is safe, toward the greater fullness of life. Every person, at some point, feels this restlessness. It appears in different forms: a longing for purpose, a hunger for love, a thirst for truth, a yearning for beauty. It is the sense that the things we have built, the successes we have gained, the comforts we have secured, are not enough to satisfy the deep places of the heart. That longing is not a flaw in our design, it is part of it. It is a compass pointing us toward transcendence. If we listen carefully, we will realize that restlessness is not asking us to run away from life, but to go deeper into it. It is not telling us to reject what we have, but to use what we have as a foundation for something greater. The restless soul is not broken, it is alive. It refuses to settle for a life without meaning. It hungers for truth, for connection, for the divine. Many people try to silence their restlessness. They drown it in noise, in entertainment, in constant distraction. They convince themselves that comfort will quiet the ache, that success will satisfy the hunger, that pleasure will fill the void. But none of these things can reach the depths of the soul. Restlessness will return, gently but persistently, until it is heard. It is not an enemy to be feared. It is a teacher to be welcomed. It pushes us toward self-examination. It asks the questions we often avoid. What am I living for? Who am I becoming? What truly matters? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are holy questions. They are the starting point of wisdom. They are the soil in which transformation begins to grow. Every great spiritual awakening, every act of creativity, every step toward purpose begins with restlessness. It is the spark that ignites change. It is the stirring that reminds us that we are not meant to live half-asleep. When the soul grows restless, it is because it senses that it has outgrown its current space. It is being called to stretch, to reach, to ascend to new heights of understanding and love. Restlessness is the tension between who we are and who we are called to become. It is the gap between our comfort and our calling. If we ignore it, we remain stagnant. If we listen to it, we begin to grow. The restlessness of the human spirit is not a curse. It is evidence of divine design. It tells us that the heart was not made for shallow waters. It was made for the depths. It was made to seek what is eternal. To live without restlessness would be to live without the impulse to grow, without the hunger for truth, without the desire for God. Restlessness keeps us moving, keeps us searching, keeps us awake. It is the sign that the flame within us still burns, that we have not given up on the possibility of more. So when you feel that unease, that holy discontent, do not rush to silence it. Listen to it. Let it lead you, because that restlessness is not emptiness. It is the soul's yearning for meaning, for depth, for the fullness of life it was always meant to find. True improvement requires humility, acknowledging we are works in progress. Humility is the soil in which all genuine growth takes root. Without it, every effort toward change becomes shallow, fragile, and self-centered. Humility reminds us that no matter how far we've come, there is still further to go. It keeps us grounded in the truth that we are always learning, always becoming, never complete. To improve without humility is to build without a foundation. It leads us to pride, to comparison, to the illusion that we have already arrived. But humility keeps us teachable. It keeps the heart open to correction, to wisdom, to transformation. It whispers to us that imperfection is not failure, it is an opportunity for growth. Every person, no matter how wise or accomplished, is still a work in progress. We carry both light and shadow within us, strength and weakness, courage and fear. Humility is the virtue that allows us to see both honestly. It does not shame us for our flaws. It simply invites us to face them with patience and hope. To be humble is to say, I am not perfect, but I am willing to be shaped. It is to accept that life itself is a process of refinement, a slow, steady chiseling of the soul into something more beautiful and true. When we lack humility, we resist that process. We cling to our opinions, our habits, our sense of control. We pretend to know more than we do, and in doing so, we close the door to wisdom. But when we embrace humility, we begin to listen to others, to experience, to the quiet voice of truth within. We learn that improvement is not a race against others. It is a journey within ourselves. It is not about proving our worth. It is about uncovering it. Humility allows us to admit when we are wrong. It gives us the courage to start again, to ask for help, to say, I don't know. Those small acts of honesty open the way for real progress. Pride hides our weaknesses, but humility heals them. It takes humility to learn from failure instead of being crushed by it. It takes humility to celebrate another's success without envy. It takes humility to keep growing even when growth means letting go of who we used to be. Every stage of life demands a new kind of humility. The young must learn to listen. The wise must remember that there is still mystery. The strong must remember that strength is a gift, not a possession. Humility transforms improvement from self-glorification into self-giving. It shifts our motivation from "I want to be better than others" to "I want to become who I am meant to be." True improvement is not about perfection, it is about sincerity. It is about showing up each day with an open heart, willing to learn, willing to fail, willing to try again. Humility helps us see progress not as a straight path, but as a winding road with setbacks and detours. And that is all right, because growth is not measured by how quickly we advance, but by how faithfully we continue. When we understand that we are works in progress, we begin to treat ourselves and others with compassion. We no longer demand perfection. We begin to see that everyone is fighting unseen battles, everyone is learning, everyone is becoming. Humility connects us. It builds bridges instead of walls. It reminds us that no one stands at the summit alone, that we rise together by grace, by effort, by patience. True improvement requires humility because humility keeps us honest, hopeful, and human. It allows us to grow without arrogance and to fall without despair. It teaches us that the journey itself is sacred and that every moment of progress, no matter how small, is a quiet act of becoming who we were always meant to be. Discipline must be motivated by love, not ego or comparison. At its heart, true discipline is not about control or pride. It is about devotion. It is about ordering our actions, our time, and our energy toward what truly matters. When discipline is rooted in love, it becomes beautiful. It becomes an expression of gratitude, a way of honoring the gifts we have been given. But when discipline is driven by ego or comparison, it becomes harsh and empty. It turns into a performance, a desperate attempt to prove our worth, rather than to grow in truth and goodness. Love is what gives discipline meaning. It transforms effort into purpose. It gives strength to persistence and grace to struggle. When you love something deeply, a craft, a calling, a person, a mission, discipline flows naturally from that love. You wake early not because you are forced to, but because your heart longs to serve something greater than comfort. You practice patience not out of pride, but because love teaches you that good things take time. Love makes sacrifice joyful because it connects every act of effort to something sacred. Ego, on the other hand, demands recognition. It whispers, "Do this so others will see you, praise you, envy you." Ego turns discipline into a contest, a way of measuring ourselves against the world. It feeds on comparison, constantly asking, "Am I better than them? Am I winning?" But that kind of discipline does not bring peace. It breeds restlessness, resentment, and insecurity, because no matter how much we achieve, there will always be someone ahead, someone stronger, someone more admired. When discipline is driven by ego, the heart becomes weary, but when it is driven by love, the heart becomes alive. Love frees discipline from the need to impress. It teaches us to work quietly, faithfully, and joyfully even when no one is watching. Love focuses not on appearances, but on transformation. It asks not, "How do I look?" but "Who am I becoming?" That question changes everything. Discipline rooted in love leads to humility. It accepts imperfection and honors progress. It is gentle but steadfast. It is not afraid of failure because love sees value even in the struggle. When you love what you do, discipline ceases to feel like a burden. It becomes an act of participation, a way of joining yourself to the creative rhythm of life. A musician practices for hours not out of pride, but out of love for the beauty of sound. A teacher prepares with care, not for applause, but out of love for the minds entrusted to her. A parent sacrifices daily, not to prove strength, but out of love for their child's flourishing. This is the kind of discipline that builds character and sustains joy. It is consistent, but not rigid, strong, but never cruel. It endures because love gives it reason to endure. Discipline without love becomes punishment. It chases perfection and ends in exhaustion. Discipline with love becomes devotion. It seeks wholeness and leads to peace. Comparison poisons the spirit, but love purifies it. When we compare ourselves to others, we lose sight of our own path. We forget that each soul is unique, each journey sacred. Love reminds us that discipline is not about being better than someone else. It is about being faithful to who we are called to be. When you act from love, you no longer need validation. Your reward is the quiet satisfaction of knowing you gave your best, that your effort served something good and true. Such discipline refines the soul. It teaches patience, endurance, and gratitude. It draws strength from within rather than from the shifting opinions of the world. And slowly, through small acts of love and steady perseverance, it shapes a life that is not only disciplined, but deeply meaningful. Failure is formative, shaping character and deepening perseverance. Though we often fear it, though we spend our lives trying to avoid it, failure is one of our greatest teachers. It has a way of stripping away illusions, of humbling our pride, of revealing who we truly are beneath the surface of success. Failure does not destroy us, it refines us. It presses us to grow beyond our comfort, to look inward, to rebuild stronger and wiser than before. When we fail, something within us is tested: our patience, our resolve, our hope. We are confronted with the question, will I give up or will I rise again? That question, painful as it is sacred, because how we respond to failure determines the depth of our character. Success may build confidence, but failure builds strength. It teaches us endurance, humility, and compassion, qualities that no easy victory can give. Failure has a way of slowing us down, forcing us to listen to lessons we might have ignored. It reminds us that we are not invincible, that we are still learning, still unfinished, still human. In failure, we come face to face with our limitations. But it is in recognizing those limits that we discover our potential. Failure shows us the edges of our ability, and then whispers, "Go further." It invites us to stretch beyond what we thought possible. Every person who has achieved something meaningful has walked through the fire of failure. It is the price of growth, the cost of excellence, the pathway to depth. When we stumble, when we fall short, we learn that success is not the absence of defeat, but the courage to begin again. Each failure carries within it a hidden seed, the possibility of wisdom. But that seed only grows if we choose not to despair. If we face our mistakes with honesty, they become lessons. If we face them with humility, they become grace. It takes courage to look failure in the eye and say, "You will not define me, you will shape me." That courage is the beginning of perseverance. Perseverance is not born in comfort. It is born in resistance, in the long nights when progress feels invisible, when every effort seems to end in disappointment. But in those moments, something powerful is being formed within us: resilience. Resilience is the quiet strength that says, "I will keep going." It is the calm after the storm, the strength after the struggle, the wisdom after the wound. When we fail, we learn to depend less on control and more on faith. We learn that the journey matters as much as the destination. We learn to value growth over perfection. Failure teaches us empathy. It softens the heart toward others who fall. It helps us to see that everyone is carrying their own battles, their own unseen defeats. It reminds us that greatness is not in never falling, but in always getting up. The most enduring people are not those who never failed, but those who refuse to let failure have the final word. They understand that falling short is not the end of the story, it is the shaping of the soul. Failure builds wisdom through pain and maturity through persistence. It chisels away pride and replaces it with gratitude. It turns ambition into purpose and impatience into trust. Over time, the scars left by failure become marks of resilience. They remind us not of defeat, but of perseverance, of courage, of grace under pressure. Failure, when embraced with humility, does not diminish us, it deepens us. It teaches us to begin again not as who we were, but as who we are becoming. Small, consistent growth leads to profound transformation over time. We often look for big changes, dramatic moments, or instant results. We imagine that transformation must come through grand achievements or sudden breakthroughs, but life rarely works that way. Real change, the kind that lasts and shapes the soul, happens slowly through small, steady acts of effort repeated over time. The seed that becomes a towering tree does not grow overnight. It pushes through the soil quietly, almost unseen, inch by inch, day by day. And yet, in time, it becomes strong enough to withstand storms, to offer shade, to bear fruit. Our growth works in the same way. It happens in the quiet choices we make each day, the choice to be patient instead of angry, to listen instead of argue, to try again instead of giving up. Each small decision may seem insignificant on its own, but together they form the foundation of a transformed life. We live in a world that celebrates speed and instant success. We are told that progress must be quick, that results must be visible, that anything slow is not worth our time. But the deepest forms of growth, spiritual, emotional, moral, do not rush. They move at the pace of patience. They require consistency, not intensity. The person who commits to small, steady effort grows in ways that the impatient heart will never know. Discipline is built in the daily routines that seem ordinary. Wisdom is formed in the quiet reflection that others overlook. Character is shaped in the unseen struggles where no one is watching. Every moment of effort, however small, leaves an imprint on who we are becoming. Even when progress feels invisible, something is happening within. The heart is being strengthened. The mind is being clarified. The will is being refined. Growth is rarely dramatic in its early stages, but it is always powerful in its results. Over time, the small habits of goodness and perseverance compound. Like drops of water wearing down stone, they carve something lasting into the soul. We often underestimate the power of consistency. We think that if we cannot change everything at once, we are not changing at all. But true transformation is built through faithfulness, through showing up, through trying again, through refusing to quit even when progress seems slow. A single day of effort may not make a visible difference, but 1,000 days of effort, guided by purpose, can remake a person entirely. Each small act of kindness makes the heart softer. Each moment of gratitude opens the eyes to beauty. Each choice to forgive makes the soul lighter. Growth becomes profound when it becomes a way of life. The greatest transformations happen quietly in the ordinary rhythms of persistence. It is the teacher who continues to inspire, the parent who continues to love, the artist who continues to create, even when no one notices. They are not moved by applause or impatience. They trust the slow work of time. And in that trust, something miraculous unfolds. Slow, steady growth teaches humility because it reminds us that progress is not entirely in our control. It teaches patience because it invites us to wait for the fruit that only time can bring. It teaches gratitude because it allows us to see how far we have come, step by step, moment by moment. Transformation is not a single leap, but 1,000 small steps taken with intention. It is the accumulation of faithful effort, of small beginnings honored each day. And when we look back after many seasons, we realize that those small steps, once invisible, once ordinary, have led us somewhere extraordinary. That is the quiet miracle of consistency. It turns the smallest seed of effort into a harvest of lasting transformation. Continual self-betterment is an act of gratitude, a response to the gift of life itself. To grow, to learn, to strive toward goodness, these are not acts of pride, but of thanksgiving. Each new day is a gift, a chance to become a little more aware, a little more kind, a little more true. When we work to improve ourselves, we are not rejecting who we are. We are honoring what we have been given. Life itself is a miracle, a mystery unfolding moment by moment. To live without gratitude is to take that miracle for granted. But to grow in wisdom, in virtue, in love, is to say with our actions, "Thank you for this chance to be alive." Gratitude is more than words spoken in prayer or written in journals. It is the way we live. It is how we use the time, the mind, the body, and the heart we have been entrusted with. To waste our potential is to turn away from the gift of life. To nurture it, to refine it, to let it shine, that is gratitude in motion. Continual self-betterment is not about perfection. It is about reverence. It is the humble recognition that life is precious and fleeting, and that the best way to honor it is to grow within it. Every effort we make to rise above laziness, bitterness, or indifference is a way of saying, "I will not waste what has been given to me." The one who seeks to improve themselves is not merely chasing achievement. They are answering a sacred call, the call to become more fully alive. When we love life, we want to live it well. We want to use our gifts wisely, to expand our capacity for goodness, to bring light where there is darkness. That desire to grow, to become better, comes from a heart that is awake to gratitude. It is the opposite of apathy. It is the refusal to take the days we have for granted. Gratitude does not stand still. It moves, it creates, it transforms. It pushes us to become more not for recognition, but out of reverence for the life we have. To live with gratitude is to see every challenge as a teacher, every setback as a lesson, every success as a chance to give back. It is to know that our existence is not owed to us, but entrusted to us. We did not create this life, but we are stewards of it, and stewardship demands growth. When we strive to better ourselves, to think more clearly, to act more justly, to love more deeply, we are giving thanks not only with our lips, but with our lives. Each act of improvement, however small, becomes a kind of prayer. A student who studies diligently honors the mind they were given. A musician who practices honors the gift of expression. A friend who learns to listen with patience honors the sacredness of relationship. In this way, self-betterment becomes an offering, a quiet expression of appreciation for the breath, the strength, the time, and the opportunities we possess. Even in failure, when we rise and try again, we are showing gratitude for the chance to begin anew. Growth is not a burden, it is a privilege. It is the unfolding of the potential placed within us from the beginning. To live without striving to improve is to live asleep to the wonder of existence. But to live in continual self-betterment is to walk through life awake, aware, and thankful. It is to live as though every day is a sacred chance to become more compassionate, more courageous, more alive. Continual growth is not just about changing ourselves. It is about honoring the one who gave us breath, the mystery that sustains us, the beauty that surrounds us. When we grow, we participate in creation itself. We become co-creators of goodness, truth, and beauty. And that desire to rise, to serve, to refine the soul is the deepest expression of gratitude a human being can offer for the gift of life. So, let us live as people who are deeply grateful not only in word, but in the way we grow. Let us remember that every day is an invitation to rise a little higher, to love a little deeper, to live a little truer. The journey of self-betterment is not about reaching perfection, but about honoring the sacred gift of existence with our effort, our courage, and our hope. May we never grow weary of becoming. May we never take for granted the breath in our lungs, the strength in our hands, the light that still guides us forward. And may our continual striving to improve in thought, in character, in compassion be our living thank you to the gift of life itself.